A new Politico morning consult poll shows support for impeachment of the president is ticking up 5 points, 43% for, 45% against. But Steve Kornacki also has polling that shows the president's approval rating on the rise. Steve, tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because on the one hand, I think that the impeachment numbers there tell you a lot about the intensity of the opposition to him. It's not just that Democrats especially are against him, it's that they're really, really against him and in that polarization. But the other thing that's notable is, last week we had a lot of stories about Trump's approval rating falling back into the 30s, and we were asking the question, is this sort of the new norm for him? Is it going to get lower? Are there going to be Republican defections? Well, you see, it did tick up again. Gallup keeps the daily number. It did tick back up into the 40s. And the thing I noticed when I look at this is if you look at the trajectory of the Trump presidency, you see it right there. Basically, the low water mark, he's hit it a couple times there. You can see in the blue there, the low water mark's 35%, and the high water mark for his approval rating during his presidency, 45%. He's been in the low mid-40s for a little bit of it too. And the interesting thing is if you compare that 35 to 45 range with what we saw last year in the presidential election, Trump versus Hillary Clinton, you see basically the exact same range. In a bad week, Donald Trump would plummet down to 36%. That was his low point, hit that in the middle of July. Actually, right before the election, his high point against Clinton, at least before Election Day, was 43%. So I do wonder when I look at that, we're bouncing between the same range, approval rating versus election. It does lead me to ask you, in the big picture, has that basic divide that we saw revealed on Election Day, for all the noise and all the chaos of the last 6 months, has that basic divide really changed much?
And he does, Steve, still seem to have that bedrock of support, of people who aren't going anywhere, still with him 3-4 months into this right now. We had a Harvard poll yesterday that showed something like 72% of Republicans still believe in what he's doing. People who voted for him are still with him. Is there a moment where that changes?
That's the thing, and I realized too, when I looked at those two graphs, I realized we were asking the same question in the campaign. And we hit a number of moments where his support among Republicans in the campaign dropped into the 70s, even into the 60s at a few points. And we said, well, this is the thing that's going to turn Republicans off. And then what happened was they kept bouncing back to him. He'd have, the Access Hollywood tape would come out. He'd get into the whole dispute about the Mexican judge, and he'd make those comments. And you'd see the numbers drop, but a week later, they'd rise back up. His overall number would be back in the 40s against Clinton, and that would be because Republicans would come home. And it looks like in this Gallup poll, again, just from last week to this week, that accounts for the change. His Republican support went back up over last week.
So, Steve, let me ask you. So when Trump's at 35, 36, 37%, who has left him? Are those Republicans? Are those independents? Are they the suburban Republicans most likely that have moved away from him when he's at 35, 36, 37%?
Yeah, it does look like that it's Republicans, or it's Republican-leaning independent voters, or they'll call themselves independents, but they'll typically vote for Republicans. So it does look like there is a type of soft Republican voter. I can't tell from the Gallup one a more specific profile than that. I will say, when you look back in the campaign, it looked like the Republicans who really came home to Trump in the end did live in the suburbs, because the Clinton campaign expected, you used to hear them say, there's no way we're going to lose Pennsylvania. Sure, he's going to do well in the rural areas, but we're going to win the Philly suburbs. And basically, he forced a draw there.
And Julie Pace, as we've learned all too well, it's important, even as covering the White House, if that's your focus, to keep your eyes on the rest of America and to keep your eyes on the pulse of where people are, especially now, even now. You hear Hillary Clinton talking about why she lost, and there are a lot of reasons why she lost, and some of the points that she's making. The others are in the rest of America or across this country. Every corner of this country, everybody matters.
And we've found this as we've gone out and reported around the country since Trump has taken office, as he makes these major decisions, as he engages in some of these controversies like firing Comey, we go out and talk to voters in Ohio, in Iowa, in Florida, and we have found that Trump voters generally have stuck with him. They are still confident that he will be able to follow through on some of these campaign promises. But I think what's really important to remember in these numbers is that whether we're talking about Trump at 35% or we're talking about Trump at 41, 42%, we're talking about a president who's in a pretty weak position politically right now. These are not strong numbers for a president at this stage in his tenure. He's just so early right now. He should still be in something of a honeymoon period. And if he doesn't follow through on health care repeal, if he can't make progress on tax reform, which is going to be extremely difficult, do you not just see Republican voters start to move away from him, but do you see some of these Republican lawmakers that are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt start to move away and start to say, hey, I can't walk the plank for a guy who's got a 40% approval rating?
I just don't know how much longer they can do that. Julie Pace, thank you very much. Coming up, is Russia about to get their 2 compounds back, accused of being nests for spies? We're going to dig into the new wave of reporting on the probe into Russia when Bianna Golodryga joins us. And later, we're joined by former White House Chief of Staff James Baker to get his take on how the Trump White House is functioning. Morning Joe is back after this.